Welcome back to the Ed Morrissey Show podcast. I got a real treat today. I got a chance to talk to an old friend of mine, John Nolte of Breitbart, who is now a first-time published novelist with a new book called Borrowed Time. And I was just explaining to John, I haven't had a chance to read it yet because reasons. But I'm looking forward to it. John, first off, congratulations. This is no easy feat. I can tell you that from personal experience trying to get a novel published.
It was a labor of love. It took about 6 years to plot, 5 years to plot. It took 2 years to write. And I never thought I'd finish it. I assumed if I finished it, it wouldn't be very good. Then I assumed it would never get published. So it's been a very gratifying experience. I'm thrilled with the reaction so far. I'm thrilled with the publisher. I'm thrilled with the accomplishment. And I think people will like the book. And I want them to know that if they buy the book and they decide they don't like it, that I'm offering them this 100% guarantee that whatever money I make off that book, I will spend on my Blu-ray collection. It's the best I can offer.
That's a pretty damn good offer.
It's the best I can offer.
That's like is it Pawn Stars that does that? Well, the best I can offer is
that's right.
Yeah, I've seen the memes. So there you go. That's great. I was just about to say, are you nuts? But
no, I'm not. But so far the reviews at Amazon, they've been awesome. I couldn't be happier with the reviews. It's I wanted to write a page turner. It's not a political book in the sense that it's partisan. I'm not
right.
It's not a mega book or anything like that. And those books are fine, but I just didn't want to write one like that. And I just wanted to write a page turner that would take people away because I miss that. I miss things being not political, movies and TV shows and books, and you just can't escape anymore because they always keep pulling you in. So I wanted to write a page turner that took people away. It obviously reflects my worldview, but there's a way to do that without bludgeoning people with talking points. And, I want to hopefully they'll feel something when it's over. And I've been very happy with the response. It's kind of scary. You know this. You wrote a book. It's like you're dropping your pants in front of the world. It's a scary thing.
It is a scary thing. And yeah, I mean, I am still very proud of my book. It didn't sell very well. It was, I think, a victim of an unusual political cycle. Victim. It just, it came out. The timing was just not great for it.
And it's everything.
I'm still proud of it. And it's at a certain point. Have you written nonfiction before, or is this your first book, your first published book?
Yeah, no, I've been very lucky because Breitbart News has given me all kinds of opportunities. But the thought of writing a nonfiction book, something like 99 Reasons CNN Sucks, it would probably sell, better than a fiction book will. But the money's not worth it to me. I just didn't want to do that.
No, I get it. But I mean, first off, I'm sure this is going to sell very well. But at a certain point, you do have to say to yourself, look, I've done the best I can. What the book does is what the book will do. And I'm going to promote it. I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to try to get people interested in it. But the book is going to do what it's going to do. And that's, I think, the toughest lesson to learn. And that's, I would assume it's true if you got a bestseller, and it's certainly true if you don't. I can talk about that from personal experience, but I digress. Let's
we'll be able to commiserate. But you can't write it for the money. There's no money in it. You got to do it for the accomplishment, and that's why the story just sucked me in, and I had to tell it, and I hope that never happens again.
Before we get into what the book is and the plot, I'm curious because what you just said, I think, makes a ton of sense. If you're going to write a novel, and I've been approached on this, well, why don't you write a novel about politics and we'll partner you up with somebody? And, this was a proposal that came to me several years ago, and I entertained it for a bit, kind of batted some ideas back and forth. I was thinking, if I'm going to write about politics, I'll just do it on the blog. And then the book came up shortly after that, I think. And it's like, okay, well, I can write about politics for the book too.
Yeah.
But I mean, you write about entertainment over at, you write about a bunch of things over at Breitbart. But you also, you're very good at entertainment. And I'm wondering if that isn't what just that experience of trying to get people to separate, get Hollywood to get the politics out of their own offerings is what drove some of your impetus here.
When I decided I tried to write it as a screenplay, which was a mistake because I'm not a good screenwriter. But with the screenplay, I had the outline of the book more or less, and then I knew I'd have to write a novel, and that was a whole new learning experience. I've never even tried to write a novel or even a short story before. So, but it did. To your question, it informed me when I was writing the book not to get political. Because even if I did something that our side would like, if I had Trump save the day or something, it takes you out of the story.
Right.
It just ruins the story. I don't have a problem with political movies. I mean, Spike Lee and Oliver Stone are two of my favorite modern day directors. I think they're brilliant. And sometimes Spike Lee can go a little far, but they've both made brilliant left wing movies, and they don't take me out of the story because even though they're making a political point, thematically they're about something bigger. JFK is about what a man is willing to do to find the truth. Platoon is about a young man deciding between good, the William Dafoe character, or evil, the Tom Berenger character. So they work in theme instead of rhetoric. And so when I was writing my book, I said, I'm not going to do this. It's going to reflect things I believe in, but I'm not going to do it in a way. So I had some left-wing friends. I have left-wing friends, believe it or not. And I had a couple of them read it, and I didn't tell them anything. But when it was done, I said, well, did it put you off at all? And they both told me, no, not at all. We know what you believe, but there wasn't a moment in there. So to answer your question, it had a lot to do. And I don't think I would have done that had I not been so upset with Hollywood over what they've done, because there could be right-wing woke too. And I wasn't going to do that.
No, I know exactly what you're talking about. This sort of doctrinal approach to, or dogmatic, I would say.
Right, dogmatic entertainment.
And we've seen some of that. And I don't want to necessarily name names, but I mean, I recall a movie that came out several years ago that was supposed to be the conservative political comedy, and it had some talented people involved in it, but it was not good. And people got upset when some of us said, good effort. You loved the spirit, but the execution wasn't very good, and people got very upset by that. But it was because it was just sort of like this hammer over the head, and it wasn't funny. I mean, there was no humor to it. It was predictable and didn't have any charm. And so I think these are great points. The reason why you want to write outside of that paradigm. My Hollywood too.
I wish, you can make a political point without, I think a storyteller's primary job is to cast a spell. And the biggest sin they can commit is violating that spell. And the fastest way to violate that spell is to bring the real world into it. Right. And that's just what they're doing all the time now. And it's so off-putting and it's frustrating. And I've been defended most of the years I've worked at Breitbart. I've defended Hollywood, and I've stopped because it's just so awful now. As far as I'm concerned, the whole industry can burn. There's nothing to miss. There's nothing to cherish anymore.
I still go to the movies and I still enjoy movies, and some of them are very good and some of them are completely apolitical, which is really nice. But yes, the problem is that there's a lot more of that isn't, and isn't that way. And I don't know if we want to get into any of the stuff over there. I'd rather talk about your book, which we should start doing at some point. Borrowed Time by John Nolte, which is now available in bookstores and online, Amazon.com, Barnes and Noble. And hang on, you gotta say something while you're showing that, because the screen.
This is my book. You should buy it, and I give 100% guarantee if you don't like it.
You did at the beginning, absolutely. Borrowed Time. So tell us about Borrowed Time. What's the premise of Borrowed Time?
Well, I have the story started as sort of a mental exercise for me. I wasn't thinking about writing a book. I was just thinking about, a what if. What would it be like if someone like me, just an everyday guy, I'm not a vampire, I'm not a superhero, what if I were immortal? And how would I deal with that? What if I'd been alive for thousands of years? How would you deal with that in a modern culture like ours, where you can feel the conformity pressing down on all of us, the photo IDs and the DNA, the mandates, the everybody carries a camera. Your phone tracks you. If you were immortal, you'd have to stay hidden. So how would you stay hidden? And the second question I asked was, what would it be like emotionally to know you're going to watch everything you love die? And the third question I had, and I've never seen this answered, and I'm not saying someone has in a format that I just didn't see it, but what would happen at the end? At the very end, eventually the universe is going to break apart, but you can't die. So what happens to you?
Ooh.
So I started asking those questions of myself. I started answering them, and I had some interesting ideas. And then I came up with the idea that this guy could sell his life to wealthy people. They could kill him. That's his renewable resource. That they could kill him and he would just come back. And that's how he could make money to help his struggling family. And that's kind of where the second act of the book takes off. He gets involved with the wrong people. And everything goes from there. Right. And I take him right to the end.
That's very, very interesting. It's an intriguing concept. You know, there was one thing in there that kind of reminded me a little bit of the Green Mile, right? Because that was sort of the question that was asked in the Green Mile was, you know, what's it like to see everybody that you love die?
Right.
Uh, the Tom Hanks film based on the Stephen King novella, I think it was with
It's
Stephen
like
King.
6 little books, 6 or 7 little books he put out, one a month for a while.
Yeah, it was serialized novella. I think is really
Yeah.
really good movie. You know, that was one of the ones that just nailed the emotional tone was just nailed perfectly on that, especially at the end. So, I mean, I've seen that addressed kind of,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I don't know that it took it beyond the question though. I mean, I think you just experience it at the not to give spoilers away for you know, a 20-year-old movie, but you know,
The commenters still get mad.
oh yeah, what? I haven't seen that yet. But I mean, it doesn't resolve that question, right? It just presents it.
Right.
And I think what you're talking about is you really want to, if not resolve it, you really want to flesh it out.
Yeah, I
And
wanted to. The character is relatable in the sense that he's an everyday person. Even though it's set in the modern day and beyond, I gave it a sense of a western. This guy's a loner. He lives in the in the Southwest, and things like in a classic western movie, things only turn around for him when he gets emotionally involved. And then he gets emotionally involved and he starts understanding the loss he's about to face and he makes mistakes. And that's the other thing is that even though my protagonist, his name is Joshua Mason, he's sort of the hero of the story. He's flawed. He's a flawed hero, which I think makes it more interesting than a Dudley Do-Right. And but all of this, it helps to drive the plot because he's dealing with emotions he's never dealt with before, and he makes mistakes. And one of the mistakes he makes is, you know, to be blunt, is being dumb enough to sell his life online. I don't see how you're going to get out of that without getting in trouble. But he's desperate. He's desperate. He not only has a wife to support, she has a brain damaged grandson who's 36 years old, but he's got the mentality of a 7-year-old, and he's got to protect that kid. In his mind, it's a kid. And then another turning point in the story is that you find out that kid is not Lenny from Of Mice and Men. He's not as innocent as everybody thought he was.
ooh, interesting. All right. Yeah, I mean, very complicated things. You know, I guess I want to ask questions that I probably shouldn't ask because I want to read the book. but
Go
I
ahead.
mean,
I'll try to be as cryptic. I won't spoil anything. I'll be as cryptic as I can.
how do you deal with the aging issue? I mean, is this a person who is immortal in the sense that he just never ages or changes?
Yeah,
Or
that was one of the breakthroughs of the book was what are the rules going to be? Because the rules
yeah,
have to be simple, and simple's hard, and you can't violate the rules. So what happens to him is that he can die like any man. He's mortal. He never ages, but he can die like any man, but then he'll come back. Um, and he comes back in the desert. And a lot of this is very much attached to the desert. So he's ageless. And that's another problem he has trying to hide is that as the people around him age, especially his loved ones, he doesn't. So that just adds more conflict to his life and hopefully to the story.
interesting. Very interesting concept. I mean, it's really outside the box and a little Twilight Zone-ish, which I like.
Right,
You
right.
know? Um, and I like the fact that you resisted the idea of turning this guy into superhero, right? Because
No,
that's all the rage these days. Is
it
and
actually started out that way.
it's-
That was how the screenplay started out. It was just dreadful. So it did not work. And I realized I was just basically writing Wolverine. So
oh yeah, oh right, good point. Yeah, I guess so. That
yeah.
would be true. Yeah.
And also, he's the other thing I did was he doesn't a lot of people that are immortal in stories, and I'm not knocking these stories, but I just want to do something different. He doesn't Forrest Gump through history. This is a guy that tried to remain hidden all these years. So, there's not any of those moments where he's watching the fall of the Roman Empire on TV and he sort of smiles to himself because he was there. That's not what he did.
Well, I mean, and I think that's it's tricky, right? Because you really want to be able to do that, right? I mean, you
Yes.
really want to be able to comment on history through that type of character. And I'm finding this more and more intriguing that you're taking deliberate choices to step away from that. Those are the types of things that you'd expect a Zelig or a Forrest Gump type of approach.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that broke, not to get too far in the weeds of the process, but I was really stuck on the Charlie character. What am I going to do with Charlie? Because he was Lenny from Of Mice and Men. And that was great 80 years ago, but it's been done a million times today. And I stopped writing for months. I had writer's block because I didn't like that and I didn't have an idea. And then one day it just hit me. I said, maybe the opposite of my bad idea is a good idea. And I applied that to the Charlie character and it broke it through straight through to the end of the book. And I applied it in 100 different ways throughout the book. And it just made it much more interesting to write. And it also, I'll give you one example. I don't think it'll, because it's in the excerpt that's posted on Breitbart. But in the original story, my guy goes to the rich people, they kill him. He goes back to his motel with his family and they come after him. And that's kind of what you expect.
Right.
But in my book, my guy's smart. He knows there's a good chance they're going to try and clean up these loose ends. So after they kill him, he goes back to kill them. So they can't hurt his family to protect his family. So that was one of those things where I thought, this is a bad idea. What's the opposite of it? Well, I'll have my guy be a little more proactive. And suddenly it's a much better story because it's always better when your protagonist drives the story instead of just sitting around reacting.
Right. No, and I agree. I mean, that's exactly what you want. And I think I think I understand where you were coming from at first, because I think that there's a danger there that when you're doing this sort of almost kind of a romantic clef, right? I mean, you're going through history with this one character and you want that person to have some sort of an impact. And so the temptation is very, very heavy there to do something. I totally get that.
Yeah, and I just thought, what's the opposite of that? And I thought, what if this guy just wants to be left the hell alone? Maybe that's more. I think it's just a way to avoid cliche.
Well, I think that would be unusual these days, right? There aren't a whole lot of people these days who just really want to be left alone. I mean, I almost want to ask you how you approach an immortal with a Twitter account, but
this guy would never have it to it. Oh my gosh!
And maybe that's a lesson the rest of us should learn.
He gets canceled in the first 10 minutes.
I mean, and again, the book is Borrowed Time by John Nolte. Again, it's available in all the bookstores. And John, hold up the book another time.
All right. It's a great cover that I had nothing to do with designing. They did a wonderful job on it.
That's a really cool cover.
Really, really great cover. Just buy it for the cover.
There you go. Just put it up on the table. Makes a great, floating shelf.
Absolutely.
What do you call it? A knickknack. It makes it great. Buy two of them just in case, just in case one wears out. Buy two of them. So when did this come out? This came out fairly recently, right?
Yeah, it came out about, 12 days ago. I think it came out, and I really appreciate you having me on, Ed. Because it's one of the things we're running into is that it's people, on our side are so enveloped in politics and so concerned with, and I understand why, it's like I said, if I had written 99 Reasons CNN Sucks, it would make a bigger splash. So it's been nice. I appreciate this very much.
Well, I mean, I appreciate you doing this. And frankly, we should be doing this more often just for S's and G's, man. I mean,
Absolutely. Anytime. I'd be happy
yeah,
to anytime.
I'd love to do this. All right. So now that it's out, I want to talk a little bit about the response to this, right? Because I mean, one of the reasons why I found out about this is because you were talking about the fact that there wasn't a lot of response to this. And those of us who make the point that we really should be more involved in creating conservative, or at least conservative origined entertainment,
Mm-hmm.
weren't reacting to this. And frankly, I just didn't even know about it until I saw that. Mark Judge has made this same comment. In fact, I may have heard about this from Mark Judge. That he's talked about this a lot with his own work, is that nobody's talking to him, that he's got a book that he thinks could be very easily transformed into a film,
Mm-hmm.
but nobody's willing to put money into that, or even attention. And I find that kind of an indictment. Those of us who are talking about stuff like this who aren't keeping up with it. And so tell me a little bit about that journey, trying to get some attention
Well,
to.
it's, people on the right who care about the arts are not superior in any way to people who aren't. That's not what I'm saying at all.
Right, right.
But people on the right who care about the arts are unicorns. People like you and me and Mark Judge, who wrote a great book, even though it's a nonfiction book, but it's a terrific book. Andrew Klavan, Jeremy Boring, Alex Marlowe over at Breitbart. We're unicorns. Our side is very concerned about politics for a whole host of good reasons. I mean, so much of the things we believe in are under assault now. We like sports, and we like religion and family. So the arts are not a big part of it. And that's why I didn't write this book to make any money, because you're just not going to make money on it. And it's a blind spot. But you have to understand why it is the way it is. And I think another reason why a lot of people on the right don't embrace it is because it's lonely. I mean, if you want to talk about the arts, you have to be a lefty, because that's where all the people are. So I think people tend to gravitate that way if they care about the arts. We had the greatest Pied Piper on the planet in Andrew Breitbart, and he tried to make this point over and over and over again. And things are better. I mean, things are certainly better than they were when we launched Big Hollywood 15 years ago. But it's a very difficult sell. And again, I'm not criticizing anyone. I don't think that because I love the arts, or you love the arts, or Andrew Klavan or Alex Marlowe loves the arts, that makes us somehow superior. It just makes us different, and it makes it very hard to break in with something like this.
It does. It does. And look, I mean, I think that there's another reason for it too, which is I think that a lot of conservatives have just written off the entertainment industry.
Yeah.
I mean, I hear this all the time. I'll write a movie review occasionally. I used to do it more often. I just don't go to the movies as much as I used to.
That's how you started. You started writing movie reviews on IMDb.
Yes.
I remember that.
That's before I started blogging. Yes.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. And I really enjoyed that. And I still enjoy going to the movies when I get a chance to do so. It's just, it's not a big priority in my life, but I've never been one to say, I'm never going to watch a movie. I'm never going to turn on the television. I'm not going to watch the NFL ever again, that sort of thing. But there's a lot of conservatives who are saying this is that these people are the enemy, right? They're the cultural enemy. They're trying to undermine America, and I'm not going to participate in that. And I am very sympathetic to that. The problem is that if you ignore it, it doesn't go away.
Right. And the only way that's going to change it is if people go into the arts, which is a very difficult thing to do. I tried, and I didn't flame out because I was a conservative. I flamed out because I wasn't a very good screenwriter. I'm not going to sit here and play the victim, because that's not what happened. I had a lot of opportunities to make a go of it. but it is a very left wing culture, and it's a tough thing to break into. And it's and I met a lot of great people in Hollywood, and I worked with some fantastic people. But you can see that, and I'd never touched this personally. The people I worked with, this wasn't an issue. But you can see there's a sleazy side to it, and our people like us just don't want to get into it. But it's so interesting because Breitbart went above and beyond helping me promote this book. What I dreamt of, they went above and beyond. But you go look at one of the posts we put up and at Breitbart about my book, and look at the comments. There'll be 700 comments, and I'm not in any way exaggerating. 680 of them are either complaining about the fact that we're promoting a book, or they're doing the thread jacking where they talk about something else. Maybe 10 mention it. Again, I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining at all, because you don't go into this to make money. You don't go into this to get rich. But that's just the atmosphere out there. That's just the culture towards this stuff out there. And you'd think I'd have built some goodwill over there, but they just don't want to hear it. And that's just part of it.
Yeah. You can't change the culture unless you're willing to engage the culture. And
Right.
I mean, that's absolutely the truth. You can't change the culture unless you're willing to engage the culture. And the more you retreat from it, the worse it gets.
We see that now.
I mean, I should have you back on here to talk about Wish. Did you see the trailer for Wish?
Oh my gosh. Hopefully another Disney flop. Hopefully another Disney.
There is one outcome from that might pay off, but there's no hint of it at all in the trailer. We'll talk about that another time. But I mean, there's a story out today about how they're going to. Well, I mean, it's not a news story. It's been bubbling around for a while. How they're going to redo Bambi,
right?
To make it more to modernize Bambi. We've all heard the stories about the new Snow White thing and how it's going to be very woke, very very girl powerish. Which is, there's nothing wrong with girl power, but create new stories around that. And,
right.
Yeah.
And they did. Drew Barrymore, I think, did it might have been Cinderella, but she did a thing called Ever After about 20 years ago.
It was really good.
And she totally redid it, and it's a girl power movie, but it's a good movie. I enjoyed the movie. I think I own a copy of it. So you can do it, but they just love to just take a dump over everything that matters to us. I think that's part of the joy of it. They do with Star Wars, they do with Indiana Jones. They just love to destroy what we love. And I think it's part of the thrill. And that's how broken the culture is in Hollywood. It's not about the message anymore. It's about just rubbing our face in it. But hopefully, and I could talk about this stuff forever, but hopefully, merit is going to matter again pretty soon, because these movies are flopping and the streaming wars are changing everything. But merit hasn't mattered in a long time in Hollywood because of the cable TV syndicate they got going over there. But that's coming to an end. So who knows? Maybe they'll figure it out and they'll have to actually make stuff that people like.
Yeah, and again, I think we're just gonna have to do this again to talk about some of these other issues, because we're going to go into a really long discussion on those things. I'm going to finish up on borrowed time, because I feel like I put borrowed time on borrowed time a little bit in this podcast, and I want to make sure we come back to it one more time. Borrowed Time by John Nolte. It's out there right now. You can buy it. I'm assuming that there's an audio version.
We got an Audible version. It's not in bookstores, but it is at Amazon and Barnes and Noble. There's a Kindle version. I heard a little bit of the audio version. It sounds great because they didn't have me do it. So people, but I think I honestly do. I'm proud of the book. You don't see me running around bragging about the movie I made 20 years ago. But I am proud of the book, and I think people will like it. I think they'll find it engaging. And it's if you want to just lose yourself for a little bit, just remember what it was like to lose yourself in a story. That was my only goal. That was my top goal.
There you go. Hold up the book one more time, John.
All right, here we go. I'll do a double plus good and cover my face. There you go.
Well, there you go. Borrowed Time by John Nolte. I think you could have kept your face uncovered. It would have been even better, but that's okay. John Nolte, Breitbart.com. Where else can people find you, by the way?
I'm on Twitter, X at Nolte NC at Nolte, North Carolina NC. So I'm there once in a while. It's all book stuff now, but that'll change, I'm sure, soon.
Does the book have a website?
The book does not have its own website. Nope, nope. It's at, but there'll probably be something about it at Bombardier Books or Post Hill Press. They're the publishers.
All right. All right. So go over to Bombardier and Post Hill Press and Amazon and Barnes and Noble. Go to your local bookstore because they'll appreciate the foot traffic if you can do that. But if you're into the Audible thing, Borrowed Time by John Nolte. John, thanks for being here. I'm going to get you back on here a little bit more often in the future.
Oh, you're the best, Ed, and I'm happy to come on anytime. I appreciate this very much.